Hello, welcome everybody. Welcome to the Brutal Truth podcast. I'm your host, Karinna Hogan. So, hopefully, you guys are having an amazing week. I know it's getting warmer and warmer. I love it because I'm ready for summer. I am kind of doing a just 60-day transformation at the moment right now to get my body summer ready. Fitness is not something that's new to me. Fitness has been a part of my life for the last 20 years, even though I've gone up and down, stopped and started so many fucking times. And finally in 2024, due to some, really just things that have happened in my life, failures and heartbreak and things like that, the loss of my grandmother really kicked shit into gear. And it has been just therapy lifestyle for me. So I'm really excited. And yeah, make sure you guys follow on TikTok because I will be posting that progress picture as soon as the 60 days is up. So that'll be July 4th. So on the 4th of July. Also, if this is your first time listening to this podcast, subscribing to this podcast, so my whole mission when it comes to this podcast and my brand is I help women break up with the unhealthy patterns and the toxic patterns when it comes to love, life, relationships, friendships, and even networking partnerships so that you can live the life that you want, make the money that you want, and find partners that are healthy and that align with you. That is my whole mission when it comes to this, because I feel as a woman who has many lived experiences, I have gone through all those things where, unhealthy partnerships have held me back from making money, running my business, starting a business, having unhealthy relationships with men who are emotionally unavailable, and just breaking up with the generational curses when it comes to unhealthy relationships. I also talk about the father wound. So I help you in a way to start the process of healing your father wound, because a lot of unhealthy patterns with men in relationships start with absentee father or a father that just wasn't there. They may be physically there, but emotionally was not there. So that is the core of my brand. So make sure you share this podcast with a woman that really needs to hear this message, because this is brutal truth. I don't sugarcoat. I don't gatekeep. I am going to tell you the raw, unapologetic shit that you will get triggered by and that you don't want to hear. But it needs to be said, because when you need to grow and you need to break up with unhealthy patterns, you're going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be scary. And it's going to require you to do the work and grow. Make sure you follow along. In today's episode, I am going to be talking about a subject that I am very familiar with, is self-sabotage isn't random, it's programmed. Okay. When it comes to self-sabotage, I can tell you from my own personal story, I have sabotaged many good relationships. I have sabotaged, opportunities for money. I have sabotaged friendships. I have sabotaged things in my life and things in my business that I had no business doing. Why? Because of comfort zones, because of fear, because of people pleasing, because of, well, who's really going to listen to me? Because of, family dynamics, saying, well, you shouldn't post that on the internet because you shouldn't say X, Y, and Z. You shouldn't, dress like that and post it for the world to see because you look like a hooker. Or you shouldn't say that because that's not the right thing to do. And it's all this conditioning from other people's perception instead of looking at it as, who fucking cares what they think? I'm going to post it because I want to, because it sends a message to people, right? And a lot of the years I stuck in my comfort zone. So, and the self-sabotage wasn't random. It was very much programmed, because I knew that if I was going to piss people off on whatever I was posting online and they were like, oh, well, I don't like that, and they had some kind of opinion or they got pissed off, I would just self-sabotage, say, I'm just not going to do that. Because you know what? This person had a negative, reaction to it. I'm not going to do it. And I sabotaged money and opportunities because of that, which is not right, is because it was programmed. Because in the back of my mind, what is a family member going to think? What is my ex-husband going to think? What is this person going to think? Now I don't care, because the beauty of it is because I don't block anybody. I really don't, because I don't need to. And you know what? If family members do not agree with what I post on the internet, that is okay, because that is them. This is me. and I'm going to continue to do whatever it is that I want to do. So self-sabotage isn't some random thing that just happens. It comes out of the comfort zone. It comes out of the fear of change. It comes from subconscious patterns where you are programmed that, well, if I say X, Y, and Z, this family member is probably going to have a lot to say about it. Or if I talk about the experience that I went through when I was married to my ex-husband, he's going to come back and lash out and use the kids as a pawn. Or if I post this on TikTok, of course, there's going to be hating comments and negativity about something that that person doesn't like about themselves. So they have to project it on you. So you see how all those things kind of tie into. When it comes to self-sabotage, we get into that space of that fear and that comfort zone and saying, I can't really say that because I need to stay quiet on the subject. I'm going to give you a perfect example. There are a lot of political content creators on TikTok and on Instagram and on Facebook, on every social media platform. Okay. And I can tell you every single time that I watch one of these videos and just the amount of hate because somebody doesn't agree with what they're saying, it is just tenfold. Okay. Not everybody needs to agree to what you put out there because a lot of times when they do that type of content is to trigger the masses. Okay. And some do it to trigger a response out of people. But when you talk about something that you're passionate about, whether it's politics, whether it's money, whether it's, relationships, I know with people who talk about money and finances, that seems to be a sore subject because it seems to a lot of people we shouldn't talk about money and how much money you make and how much this. Why not? Because if you're showing people, hey, you can make this by doing these small steps and making sure that you do X, Y, and Z and be successful, why not go for it? So a lot of people tend to stay in their comfort zone and self-sabotage opportunities, relationships, and things like that because of fear of what other people might think. And I'm here to tell you, fuck what they think. Who fucking cares? Because the right people are going to listen. The right people are going to find you. The right people are going to follow and they are going to connect to your message. Right? Same thing with relationships. I can tell you years ago, there was an awesome gentleman that I had met. I don't even remember how I met him. And we had gone out to dinner. And the thing is that I was so closed off to giving somebody else an opportunity because I was so hurt from the prior relationship that I had. And even though it had been a year since that breakup had occurred. And he just was just gun ho about calling and, this and that, everything. He did more than the bare minimum of all the things trying to, date me, trying to do this, trying to do that. And the reason because I was still dealing with that past hurt and I just had it in my mind in this comfort zone that, well, if he's not like him, I don't want him and he's just going to leave anyway. And he's not going to take me seriously. So I sabotaged that relationship. And he was a really good person. He treated me very well. And I just strung him along like it was nothing. Seems to be like a lot of the men and women to this day when they do things when they're like, I don't know if I'm really into them. Knowing that these are good people, right? So I sabotaged that relationship. Well, guess what? Karma hit me in the face with that because then 6 months later, guy's married to an awesome woman. They have this loving relationship. They did this. And how I found out is there was a mutual friend that had a party and we were all there together. And of course, I was a single one. I had another failed talking stage. That's what you guys call it now. I call it dating situation or whatever. It just didn't work out. And the guy was, putting his all into his wife and making sure that that was the only person that he ever just cherished and looked at. And the way he looked at her, it crushed me because I was like, I want somebody to look at me like that. And I can tell you for 1,000% certainty, I think there's only been one man that ever looked at me how he looked at his wife. And yeah, so that was very gut wrenching. But because of self-sabotage, because it was programmed in my subconscious patterns, because I stayed in the comfort zone, I was fearful of giving somebody another chance. And those are all normal feelings to be fearful of giving somebody another chance because you've been hurt. This person, has broken up with you and hurt you in the most just devastating way and plays with your emotions, like all those things are viable reasons. But one thing that you do have to do is you have to be self-aware. People will show you who they are in the very beginning. They will show you exactly who they are. They will show you their character. They will show you the red flags because it's very easy to spot. You just have to be self-aware and make sure that you recognize them from the beginning and just be mindful of, okay, how does this make me feel? What does my body feel since this happened? Do I feel good? Never doubt your intuition, guys. Never doubt that. Your intuition in your gut is always 100% right. Give you a little story time on this one. My previous relationship that ended last year was very much in love with this person. And him and I have a lot of shit in common, a lot of things as far as in a relationship that were compatible. And like him and I, like we matched in a way, like there was a really deep connection that just was unmatched with anybody that I had ever been in a relationship with. And the thing is it was more like just a very deep soul kind of connection. When I first met him in 2024, I didn't have butterflies. I did not have butterflies at all. You know what I felt? I felt like I had come home. Like this person was very peaceful and this person just was it felt good to me and it felt calm. And naturally I go, what the fuck is this all about? Because I have never felt peace. I have never felt safety. I have never felt any of those things in a relationship. If anything, it was always uncertainty, confusion, and chaos. Okay. So when I started to feel these things with this person, I said, okay, hold the fuck on. What is really going on here? Because this is not okay. And so I kind of started to dissect this in my head and I go, okay. And then as time went on and I go, okay, well, maybe this is okay. But the pattern that I failed to recognize is that he was unhealed. He had experienced trauma from a prior relationship like a month or two ago and decided that dating was going to be that thing that's going to heal him. Well, that ended up to be just a crash and burn. Okay. We did end up reconnecting later on that year. And the relationship really didn't blossom until like February of 2025, where we were just in a relationship. It was me and him. And, we were doing things, as a couple, like we were, he was my gym partner. I spent a lot of time with him, things of that sort. And I really fell hard for this person and I really just fell in love with him. I had known him already for a long period of time, so I already knew everything about him. Okay. Or so I thought. Well, the detachment, because when somebody hasn't done healing, the detachment just comes louder and louder and louder. Okay. And I started to notice signs that he was really just disconnected from the relationship. And something in my gut was like, he's going to leave me. He's going to break up with me. And I tried my best to ignore it. The one thing that I failed in that relationship is I should have voiced what my concerns were and how I was feeling so that we can talk about what was going on. And I know in a conversation that we had, he goes, I know it's me, it's not you. And he had told me, I don't really have anything to give you. That should have been my sign to say, well, then maybe we need to take a step back, because if you cannot just let me in and just go 100% in with me, then we shouldn't do this. Okay. Because you let me get attached, you let me get to a point where now it's going to be devastating. June of that year, I had gotten this voice message where instead of talking to me face to face, that's where the relationship ended, was through a voice text. And then I got another text message saying, I didn't realize you were at work and I'm sorry. And I know you're hurt and this and that. He'll figure out when to give me all my, all my stuff that I had at his place, which I basically had all my clothes and things like that there, right? I can't tell you, I had to keep such a brave face at my job to just not break down and just cry uncontrollably. But I'll tell you one thing, once I got in that car after my shift was done, I cried uncontrollably for 10 minutes. And then I pulled myself together and I came home because it was the most devastating day ever. And I don't even know how I woke up the next day knowing that the person that I loved the most and the person that I was in love with had just destroyed our relationship and ended it. We'll come to find out that several months later, he repeats the pattern of going out and dating and starts dating somebody else in a different state. Well, then I come to find out about that, and nothing could have hurt me more than saying, okay, well, now I notice the pattern because you're fucking unhealed and you think that another relationship is going to heal you, because what I was to him was a mirror, because it required depth and required growth. And what it required him to do was to level up to a better version of himself and to really start the path of healing from past trauma that he continues to avoid. I can tell you, in November of last year, I got that apology that I know you hate me voice text. And it was 2 minutes of how he wanted to apologize and give me closure. Ladies, closure is something that we do on our own. A man doesn't need to give us closure, because a man, if they really are accountable and really apologetic, they will tell you to their face, as far as, this is what I'm doing to change my ways. This is what I don't like about myself. And I know I did X, Y, and Z, and this is how I'm bettering myself. That is accountability. Okay. To this day, I have not heard any accountability out of him, none whatsoever. But he continues the pattern of continuing to date other people, knowing that I am the woman he actually wants to be with. How do I know? Because it's been said. That's why. So, because of fear and because of comfort zones and the way he is programmed, he continues to self-sabotage anything with me. And he sabotaged our relationship because of fear, because he needed to grow. He needed to make sure that he starts some kind of path on healing himself. He thinks he wasn't good enough for me. He couldn't give me what I needed and couldn't give me anything in return, knowing damn well he can, because if you can go out there and get back on dating apps or whoever's in your TikTok DMs, and when people follow a subconscious pattern because they think this is going to heal me. But then when they find the person that they are the most comfortable and safe with, because they know they can be vulnerable with them, that is the person that they sabotage and throw away. So it's not random, it's programmed. And the story that I'm telling you is because he is programmed to do that. And until he faces himself and says, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore because I don't like this, that is just going to continue to follow him. Like I said, your shadows and your trauma are going to follow you everywhere. You're just going to put it to a new face. And when you get faced with the same shit that you still have to work on, that you're responsible for, it's just going to continue to mirror itself and continue to just reveal itself until you deal with it. So that is the episode for today, and an excellent story time, because this is just me sharing my lived experiences on how I do the work with the women that I work with and how I execute to make sure that you get the healthy relationships that you so deserve. Okay. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast and make sure you follow along on TikTok for all your juicy videos that I drop, as far as making sure you live the best life you can. Just remove toxic partners, toxic patterns, and unhealthy relationships so that you can find love, life, money, and live it how you want to. So thank you so much for joining me in this episode, and I will chat with you guys in the next episode.